All right, so welcome back to another Seller Sessions podcast. And this one I've been incredibly excited about because, frankly, as everybody knows, Amazon put a lot of money into AI, but they've started to do it with their ranking algorithm as well. We've heard some rumblings about Rufus, which maybe we'll touch on a little bit today, but a back-end formula that really kind of underpins what potentially is the future of search on Amazon is something called Cosmo. Late last year, there was a research paper that came out on this, and it is really illuminating because it fundamentally changes the potential for how customers see products and are shown products, and it's going to impact anybody that sells on Amazon. So one of my really good friends in the space, and literally anytime I've got something technical that I don't understand, anytime I've got a catalog issue, Vanessa Hung is my go-to. And if people reach out to me with issues, I'm like, go to Vanessa. She's literally an encyclopedia of knowledge on Amazon, really understands the finer points, and was the first person that brought this new Cosmo potential ranking algorithm and impact to me here a couple months ago. So I brought her on specifically to talk about this, and it's going to be a really eye-opening presentation for a lot of folks. So Vanessa, welcome to Seller Sessions. Welcome to the Heist YouTube channel.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure. So I'm an Amazon nerd. I know a lot of the things that happen in the back end because I'm kind of obsessed with the system. I think it's fantastic and I just love keep learning and learning more. I started my journey in 2017 managing accounts for a company as an e-commerce manager. Then I started doing some consulting. Eventually that consulting grew bigger and bigger and I started adding like one assistant and then the other assistant and then the other assistant until it became an agency. When I had the time to create content and learn a lot, so I started like teaching and creating content in social media, also bootcamp where I teach people everything about catalog management and all of the things in the back end. And that have created this journey of being an educator in the space, which I'm super proud about of a lot of the things that are happening right now to the listings. And actually when I started talking about Cosmo, we didn't have like a tangible thing that was happening, especially when Rufus came up. It was like, okay, something came up, but we don't really see it. Right now, we have proof that that's coming. It's kind of mind-blowing for a lot of people. I think it will change the game as we know it right now for ranking, launching new products, and indexing and winning the game. It's going to be super useful.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things that at first glance, when change happens on Amazon, it's a little bit scary because it's like you're comfortable with how you've done things. But it's better to be scared and at least understand what's happening so you can actually adjust and change and be on top of it because it's going to happen anyway. So let's maybe start out with, I guess, maybe the old way or what for a lot of sellers is the current way that they think about optimizing their listings, kind of how that looks today, or at least certainly the most recent past, the last couple of years.
We don't sell products on Amazon. We sell keywords. This is a saying in the industry because Amazon ultimately is the biggest product search engine in the world and you are bidding or fighting for keywords. You need to optimize your listing, your copy, titles, bullet points, everything based on that keyword that you want to rank for. That's how you sell to the system because that's the other thing that we really need to understand. Our first real customer is actually the Amazon's algorithm. We need to sell to the algorithm so the algorithm can go out and push us to the customers that are looking for something that looks like our product or works like our product. Then we talk about also the backend attributes. It's not only the things that you put in the front end for the customer to see, but also the search terms and the little things that you can put on a flat file, for example, in the back end that make you rank. So if you go to the generic keywords or search terms or however it's called in your category, you will input there your most important keywords and the system will say like, okay, this is what the seller wants to rank for and that's what they're gonna prioritize. Images, we were optimizing the images for conversion, obviously, because we want to attract customers and we want to convert them. So those are the three things in the old catalog formula of selling keywords. We need keyword enhanced copy, then backend attributes, and then optimize images for conversion. That's fantastic. And that's the way that we used to build it. And it took us to this point, to 2024, where everything will change for us in the backend. And the reason why it's changing is because of Cosmo. Cosmo is a large-scale e-commerce common sense knowledge that generates the knowledge that the system needs to have in order to understand products better in a way that it's not only about your keyword, it's also about the context. So, you know, you probably have used ChatGPT and some of the listeners listeners have used any kind of AI, Gemini, Claude, you know that you don't really need to explain every single detail for the AI to tell you what you're talking about or to know specifically what you're asking for. The same way that those are built, Amazon is building one called Cosmo for the backend of the catalog. And the objective of Cosmo is to know what the product is about based on the information that we obviously input in the listing, but not only on the copy level, on the image, but also certain functions that go beyond what the keyword tells us. For example, and they give in the white paper a specific example of sleepers, a sleep resistant shoe. So a sleep resistant shoe, the common sense what's building is the graph to connect that feature of the shoe, sleep resistant, to the intent or the objective of the customer when buying. So the example in the paper is a pregnant woman is looking for a shoe. So the system infers that what they need is a sleep resistant shoe. So it will only show things that are related to that specific search. If we stop here and think about the implications that will have to ranking and to indexation in the future are massive. When we build listings and we keyword stuff and all of that, that doesn't really tell the system what the context of our product is. So this is where lifestyle content, or what we call semantic SEO, will play a huge role into the system understanding us, therefore prioritizing us in search to be shown to customers. That's a huge change that's happening right now. And in the white paper, they also mentioned this team that created the knowledge and worked on this project did A/B testing for 10% of Amazon's US traffic. So what they did is say like, okay, we are gonna prioritize this based on the intent of the client, and we're gonna show the things that are relevant for them based on what we know about them. And what they saw as a result of that, they were able to increase revenue by 0.7%. Just like, okay, well, 0.7% is not really that big. But on a business that is $700 billion, that is almost $5 billion increased revenue, just by changing the way the algorithm interacts with the information and how they show the information to the customer. That statement will completely change what we know about ranking, launches, indexation. But on top of that, Cosmo is using the customer interaction to learn about them. So it's not only about our products, it's also about the customer and the customer intent and the demographic and the insights and what they want and what they don't like based on all of the data they have about customers. They are able to predict what we are more likely to purchase based on our behavior, our insights and our intent, and also what the catalog has to offer. Let's put an example. Let's say we're going to a trip to Florida. When Adam searches in his Amazon, he will say like best things for a beach trip. He does that and the results will be very different from what I will see if I input the exact same query. Why? Because we have different behaviors, we have different past history, we have different intent, and probably we have different price ranges. That is the future of e-commerce. It's highly personalized, highly targeted, and the thing for us that will change is that we're gonna need to understand the most important thing in the future of e-commerce will be the audience. So you need to understand the audience really well when you build these things. So in the future, you don't sell keywords, you sell to audiences. That's the shift that we need to start implementing and understanding, because the way we need to build the content as far as copy and especially images, and we're gonna see that in a minute, it's the bigger change and the bigger context that we need to give to a system so it can prioritize us.
Super fascinating. And to your point, it sounds like those incremental gains aren't a big deal, but for companies like Amazon, it's a massive deal. And I think it's in these little incremental shifts and gains that we're really going to start to see wildly different experiences as consumers on Amazon and as sellers on Amazon. And it's no secret. I think it was probably 2 or 3 years ago, I actually, the state of California enables you to do a data request to see what companies house on you. I did one for my own selling account. And literally since 2009, since I've been an Amazon customer on the consumer side, every search, click, device I've used, thing I bought, add to cart I've done, computer I've logged into, they know it all. And so I think we've seen this on the advertising side. They've really got pretty honed in with a lot of really substantial data the last year or so. So it's no surprise they're starting to use that. For me, there's a couple of implications. The one big one is that if you're tracking like ranking, I think that's been a big part of the strategic infrastructure for most sellers the last couple of years is what are the keywords that most sellers are successful products are ranking on, and where am I ranking? And I can do that by changing my copy to index differently. I can do that by driving traffic, pay-per-click, etc., to rank on those keywords. How are you going to even know where you rank if, every customer has a different profile of what's on the first page? So I think that's implication number one. And you nailed on the second one. It's who's buying my product, why are they buying it, and what are the use cases, much more than how many keywords can I stuff in. So how did you start to see this? Obviously, the research paper came out, I think it was late last year with all these findings, and we'll leave a link in the show notes where you can actually access this. It's like 11 pages. It's fairly technical, but it's still digestible. How did you start to see things shifting that kind of led you to this discovery?
Okay, so it was a bunch of little things, and then, my work as a nerd is just like trying to put pieces together. The first thing was we were working on a project of a client that had his category changed from one to another. Both categories were kind of correct, but the search volume, or I guess the velocity in one category where he was at the beginning, was higher than the second category that Amazon changed him after. And we were troubleshooting that. In one of the interactions with somebody at seller support, they were saying that the reason why this category change happened, it was because of the images. So in the images, everything in the copy was very related to the first category where he was at the beginning. But then in the images, the whole context of the image, if you look at it, was exactly the description of the category where Amazon put him after they changed it. That to us was like, what is going on? How in the world the AI got so sophisticated, not only to understand what's in the image, it also understands context. So it can put those three together, the woman and the kid and the crib, and say this is a mom with a newborn baby, right? That is the context that I was just like, okay, now something is changing. Then we start seeing how important and relevant was the attributes on the back end. And why? In the moment where the team tested Cosmo, they didn't test Cosmo as, let's say, what I'm talking about of okay, let's put a query and the results are completely different for everybody. That's not what they did. What they did was to add 2 rows at the top of a search. So every time you do a search, now you see 2 rows that are filters. So filters to the search. And the filters were likely to be shown to what exactly they were looking for. So in the paper, they explain how somebody's looking for a mattress and the options were a regular mattress or a camping mattress. But the thing is that for the camping mattress, it was a specific set of filters. That's where Cosmo started interacting with those filters of okay, let me see what the customer really wants based on this. And now I will show exactly what they want to see. Not really what they want to see, what they are more likely to purchase based on that query. So that was really the test. Adding those pieces together and then, interacting with the catalog so often, that made me realize that this is where the world is heading. Also, at some point, I think it was the beginning of this year, they did a huge e-commerce or digital marketing conference in Dubai, where one member of the Amazon team was talking about the future of e-commerce. And he talked about this. He talked about highly personalized, targeted data, and you will interact with almost like a bot, your personal shopper, which then launched in January with the news of Rufus. So Rufus is the front end AI for customers. Rufus is like ChatGPT. It will be the personal assistant, personal shopper of people that are on Amazon, where you will say hey Rufus, I have a party next Friday. Show me some dresses. And based on what Rufus understand about my persona, what I like, what I purchased in the past, the type of things that I see on the internet, the knowledge goes beyond what we behave or what we do on Amazon. It goes so much deeper. And then Rufus will tell me that. Those were the pieces where I was okay, this is where we're going. Also, now in the search in Walmart.com, you're able to say something I'm having a party for a Super Bowl. What should I buy? And it tells you cups and plates and chips and guacamole. And so when I saw that, I'm if Walmart is working on this, Amazon has to be way ahead, even if it's not public. And this is one thing that I think Amazon is gonna be very smart. By the way, we're talking about Cosmo today. This is gonna take a while to completely unfold, because what the premise of this change is stating is that the way the customer interacts with the platform will be completely different. People, I think the majority, the regular Joe, is not really interacting with GPT or a bunch of AIs. So people are not still completely used to prompting. And prompts will be very important for the customer to see specifically what they want. And as we know, when probably you know this, Adam, when you go to GPT, sometimes you put like a super weak prompt and the result is very bad, versus giving the AI like a super strong prompt and then the results are incredible. In the same way, Amazon is trying to make this super user friendly so those type of mistakes don't happen. And I know that there is a counter argument in the industry where they say like, oh, keywords are not going anywhere, keywords are still important. And of course they are. Ultimately, we communicate through keywords. It's not that your whole listing will disappear and now you're gonna have only some woo copy or whatever. They are important, but it's not gonna be the way that we're gonna rank. And I wanna show you here the A9, which is the old formula where we talk about selling keywords, had a specific function to rank product. And that is a product is equal to the function is a. So for example, if I have a microphone, right? That's a product and the function is a microphone. When we build our listings, we will start adding those keywords in the back end or in the front end, and the algorithm will start connecting the function to the product. So is a microphone for podcast, is a portable microphone, is a microphone for travel, all of these different functions. That's how the A9 works and how they're able to rank us and index us. If the function doesn't exist in the back end, we're not going to be shown to customers, period. That's the way it works. Cosmo is not going to replace the A9. It's an enhancement because it's adding more functions. So in the example in the paper, these are the functions that they have. Use for function. So what's the usage? What's the event that they use it for? What's the audience? What's the concept, the prototype, the time, season, location, body part? Is it complementary to audience and the interest? All of those things you need to start answering in your listing. So for example, if I sell a microphone, it's going to be a microphone for podcaster or live streamers or, conferences or different things. And based on those functions, the algorithm will start ranking us on those specific audience, because somebody that is doing professional podcasting will probably need a different microphone for the person that is just in their house, on Zoom calls every day. Way different. So that's what Cosmo is asking us to do right now. Inputting that information so it understands the context in a better way.
Laying onto that a little bit more. So in today's world where A9 specific, it was very much about having very specific single match keywords as much as possible, layering in the back end, again, optimizing to convert customers with images. The future then in your view is obviously keywords are part of that, but Amazon's going to be able to decipher how your product is used and which audience to present it to beyond just the single match keyword stuffing that you lay out. If I'm an Amazon seller, I'm like, hey, I understand this is coming. Amazon's got a crap load of data on their consumers and they want to personalize those experiences. They want to enhance AI with a more connecting the dots algorithm in addition to just keywords and backend stuff. Like, what do I do if I'm an Amazon seller if I look at the next 6 months?
Okay, so the first thing is understanding your audience. And I think this is a huge step that most people miss when they are doing pro development or brand building on Amazon. They just go to the data of like software that says like, oh no, a bunch of people are looking for this product for this keyword and this is the volume and this is how much money you're gonna make, which is totally fine. And I think that we should still go for the data and launch products that are useful and people are looking for on Amazon. But the thing is that they skip the part of who's really my ideal audience? Who's really my target? Do I understand their wants, their needs, their intentions, their behavior, especially their behavior? So in the world of AI, I think a lot of things could be optimized and automated with AI. So my best advice is the first thing, if you want to understand your audience, go to GPT or whatever AI you use and ask the questions. First of all, you need to understand what are the right questions that you need to ask. So the first prompt, if you don't know, it should be like, hey GPT, I want to understand who's the ideal target audience for this specific product. I sell a microphone for podcasters, for example. What are the type of questions that I should be asking to understand what's my demographic? So the system will give you a bunch of different questions, like where are they based, what do they like, what's their hobbies, how much time do they spend in the computer, do they shop on mobile or desktop, things like that. Then you're gonna take those questions and you're gonna feed it to the AI again, and you will say, like, based on this product and in this brand, if you have a website and you use an AI that has connection with the website, like Perplexity or something like that, then you will say, based on this product, give me the answers of my ideal audiences based on this question, and the system will start giving you answers. That is the first step. Understand that part. I did these exercises with a few people in Hawaii while we were at BDSS. Some of them were like, oh, I didn't know this is actually an audience that will use my product and will buy my product. So now it's like, okay, how do I need to create content for them? Amazon, because they're reading the images so well, they're now using the things that you have in your lifestyle images, the prompts and the things in the back of an image, to connect it with things that are related or complementary to your product. So when you understand that, you know that the weight that your images have in this whole context building is massive. So let's say that you have in your ideal client is a podcast. One thing that you are gonna do is change the image on your listing to prioritize that experience of a podcast. So you might put like a person in a room with lights and a computer and doing podcasts, and then you will lay out some infographics, best quality sound, perfect, I don't know, for video or whatever the features are. That's the way you're gonna do it, because that's how you're gonna feed the system to say, like, this is the context, this is my demographic. And at this moment, because we're not fully transitioning to the Cosmo world and the AI, you probably won't see a huge increase in sales just because you added a podcaster in your lifestyle image. So that's one thing that's important, like putting the right expectations. This is something that you have to do to feed the system with information, but it's not something that overnight it will increase sales, but it will help you, and it's very important. Then the second thing, that now that you understand your audience, it's filling out the information in the backend. So when you go to the functions of Cosmo, so a function used for location, audience, complementary, body part, event, those type of things, you connect them in the backend with what you see on your flat file. So when you download a flat file, I'm not gonna get super technical with this, but if you want more information on flat files, you can follow me or look my name on YouTube. There are several like webinars that I've done on how to use flat files. On the third row of a flat file, you have the name of the attribute. So what you will do is find that, where is my audience? Where is my style? What's the event? What's the season? Those attributes that will be there. If they're not there, if you don't see it, it's because it's not available for your category. It's not relevant to your category. But if you see them, then you have to input information there. It's mandatory. Let's say that you have information, but you need to ask yourself, is this answering the type of experience that my audience is having? So if I have, for example, I'm selling a dress and I have the season there all year round, right? Because we wanna imply that our dress can be worn the whole year. But my ideal audience, after I understand, are women that are going on a date, for example, or they want something more casual to go out for dinner. Then you will say the use is, or the event is, dinner instead of all year round, because that's one thing that we as sellers with the keyword model have given so much weight to it, of like, I want to sell to everybody, I want my product to be shown to everybody. But when you do that in the world of audiences, you're selling to nobody. So the system doesn't really connect the dots between this is the perfect dress for this type of people versus not. And I believe that the riches will be in the niches. Like, this is gonna be so important, because you're gonna be able to leverage those audiences. The more audiences you can leverage, the better. That's kind of the spread that we want to do, but we don't want to sell it to anybody and everybody. We want to be localized and focused, because that's the way the system will prioritize us. So that's the part. You understand the images that need to be optimized for context. Then the backend need to answer to the functions of Cosmo. And then the other thing is understanding if right now your listing is being understood by the system in the way you want. So this is gonna get a little bit like step-by-step kind of technique. When you go to Seller Central, you click catalog and you're gonna click add a product. So in the add a product section, you're gonna create a product from scratch, which in the new UI it's blank. And right now, when you create an async from scratch in Seller Central, it gives you this option to create the content with AI, which is the AI generator or the listing generator. In the listing generator, there are two options. You either put a prompt or you either upload an image. So what you want to do is that you're going to take your main image and you're going to upload your image in that box to create the content, and the system will give you the answers of what your product is. So what you want in this case, and this is just for testing to understand if you're like in the right path, is we need to know if the answers that the system is giving us at that point is related to what our product really is. And you will be surprised also how much discrepancies there are with some things that are sometimes very hidden for us. So I did a bunch of testing with a few products, and sometimes the system tells me that the product has slightly different features than what they really have. And this is going to be critical, guys, for the future of the index section and showing to customers. If the system thinks that you're something that you're not, we're gonna be in deep trouble. And this is where the complexity is getting so high, because in the past, the A9 is just like, okay, I don't want that keyword, I remove that keyword. Or I want that keyword, I'm gonna add that keyword. In the world of AI, the context is not that we're gonna be able to go to the backend and tell Cosmo, hey Cosmo, by the way, I'm also gonna be targeting this. No, it's all of the pieces, your images, your copy, the reviews, which also are gonna play a huge role in this, and the information that's in the website or in the web about your product. So this is where you really need to get it straight, and get it straight now, because Cosmo is not completely rolled out to all of the traffic in the US or on Amazon in general. So you want to know if the AI knows what your product is. So recapping that, go to Seller Central, create a listing from scratch, upload the image of your product, and get the feedback of what the system thinks your product is based on your image. If you're good, if your product is perfect, and then the feedback that it gives you is exactly what your product is, then you're nothing else to do. But if you see that it's saying something very different, and by the way, I'm gonna put a huge note here, things like dimensions and weight and country of origin don't apply. So it hallucinates a lot on those things. I'm saying things that are more about the function, how they use it or what they use it for.
Yeah.
Those are the things that you need to pay attention, because if you're like miscategorized or misunderstood by the system, you have a problem, and then you need to change your image. And that's why images will be so critical. Those are the 3 steps that they could do right now to prepare for it. We're gonna see this rolling out a lot. Also, one thing that I know, I was on a meeting with Amazon, I think 2 weeks ago, and they mentioned that at Amazon Accelerate in September, their big event in Seattle, they're gonna have a full track on AI, and they're gonna release a bunch of things with AI. So I'm pretty confident that for September, like I get the chills literally, for September, we're gonna see some cool stuff and more official rollouts on how that's gonna impact. Just for you to test, this is another thing. It's probably not a huge change because you cannot do anything about it. But now, if you go to your mobile experience on Amazon, and you go to your listing, at the bottom, when you have the Q&A section, you know that we don't see Q&As anymore, but we see the search bar to ask a question. Right now, if you ask a question on your Amazon, the AI will answer to you on real time. This is Rufus, but that's not on the search bar, it's on your listing already. So when you ask a question on your pro detail page, it gives you answers based on, again, your content, your reviews, and the information that it has on the web and previous Q&As. It's already there, guys, so go ahead and test it. Because it's like an open LLM, like a large language model, it also answers things that are not necessarily related to your product. So, take that in consideration, that if you're looking for answers, ask the questions. So remember what I said about what are the questions that my audience is asking? Start asking those questions into the LLM, because one other thing that we need to understand is the objective of AI at this moment. What they're looking for is training. And the way the AI trains is with interaction. The more you interact with, the smarter it gets, more common sense knowledge it gets. Asking questions, it's super useful. On your own list, what are the things that, you want to see. And honestly, I don't know right now if the system gives you an answer that is not really relevant or is not correct. I don't know if changing your content will automatically change the AI. So I don't know how often it trains on the data. This is something that I'm testing, and I will be testing in the next couple of weeks. But yeah, it's going to be super interesting what the world of Amazon ranking and everything it has for us.
Yeah, it's wild. I guess my final question, because I think this is interesting, right? It still is a large keyword based model. Obviously, it was much more prevalent in the past and the future, and there's more complex elements that will change what customers see in terms of results for search queries. So let's say that there's 8 to 10 keywords that are fairly relevant to your product that other competitors are ranking on. In this new world, where before maybe it was I'm going to try to get as many of those in the title as I can, as many in the bullets, as many in the single keyword kind of component. What do I do with keywords? If I know that there's like 10 to 15 keywords that still describe the product customers are still going to search for, they're going to impact my sales velocity. How do I inject those into the front end of my listing in this new world of Cosmo?
As I mentioned, keywords are not going anywhere. When we say keywords are not going anywhere, we're implying that language is not going anywhere. And the way that the AI interacts is through language, through keywords, through input. So that is not going away. Counter argument that I got when I started talking about Cosmo was like, no, you're crazy. Amazon will never get rid of, keywords. It's just like, of course not, because that's the way that we communicate. So if it's important for you, and again, because we are in a transition phase, Cosmo is still not completely rolled out, those things that are important should be there. But more than just adding the keyword, Adam, it's just adding the keyword in a way that it gives context. Right? Okay. So for as an example, let's say that my keyword is wedding guest dress. Right? That's my keyword. You're going to put that keyword on your bullet points or maybe on your title, which, by the way, I'll say something about titles. I don't know how official this is, but one time we were troubleshooting something and a higher level support person told us that the system was automatically changing titles to a shorter version of the title. Right now, what they're optimizing for is kind of like minimalistic titles. I don't know how much the title, but let's say that it's a wedding guest dress. You're gonna say that. You're gonna say the keyword, but you're also gonna give context. This is the perfect wedding guest dress for a wedding in, the mountains or in the city or whatever. You use your keyword and build context around your keyword. That's the point of Cosmo. A keyword itself doesn't mean anything unless we give it context. And the scary part is that if we don't do that, if we don't give the semantic meaning of the copy or the keyword, the system will start implying things that we're not. And that's what we don't want. So that's so important. Think about shifting your mind of, okay, I'm going to use my keywords, which are kind of pieces to my puzzle, but then I'm going to complement these pieces to the context, the use, the function, the season, the time, the audience. So I connect everything in a story. So it will be like storytelling in a sense. You're not writing books, but that's how it's gonna feel at the beginning. And again, one thing that I'll say, this is the result of my research. I don't know if maybe in September when Amazon rolls something out in Seattle for Accelerate, if they will say something completely different. And that, I think it will be okay. I'll be so happy if it's actually correct, my assumptions. But let's say they say something different. Well, it's part of the game. So we pick up our stuff and then we start running with the new information we have. At this moment, my theory is just theory, right? It's a hypothesis. I'm seeing how things change. Amazon is changing it. The AI is implying some things that the product is not, or changing categories when they're not. I think this is pretty true to what's going to happen. But let's see. I mean, that's the other part. I don't think we should wait. And that's one huge thing. If when AI roll out to the whole world, and how those models train every time, and every so often they train more. Imagine that tomorrow Cosmo start like being a true thing for 100% of the traffic. The people that didn't do the work, we're gonna be left behind until the model learns again. And that doesn't happen every day. That's why I'm saying, like, this is very, very important for us to get onto it and start working. And at the end of the day, none of the things that I'm talking about will really impact you in a bad way with the model that we have, because you still have the keywords, but now you're making it better. Yeah, I think that's a kind of the conclusion of what I saw with all of this white paper and the different movements that were happening in the platform. And it's just an AI party, and you should get to the party as early as possible.
Yeah, 100% agree. I think you brought up a good point. Like, there's been a lot of people that have cracked the Amazon algorithm and all this stuff. The reality is, I don't think anybody knows, even within Amazon, truly what the algorithm is, but there's breadcrumbs. We've got breadcrumbs in terms of this scientific white paper, which is very, very revealing. You've got experiential stuff, and you've obviously been in the trenches a lot with catalog work and had a lot of clients. And then it's just testing and seeing what happens. And things will always be dynamic and roll and change. But I think that the thesis rings true. I think this is where Amazon is going. It's a fascinating topic. It's a very consequential topic for sellers. And Vanessa, you illuminated it super well. You're one of the kindest people in the space, smartest. Really appreciate you coming on to both Seller Sessions and the Heist YouTube channel here to share what you found. If somebody is like, you know what, this is kind of making my head hurt, can I get, Vanessa, just to look at my catalog and attributes and figure this out? How does somebody work with you? Because there's something that I can't crack. I always send people your way. You've helped me in my businesses as well. If somebody wants to work with you on the back end piece or any other of the technical components of Amazon, how do they reach out to you?
Sure. We now have kind of a service called Amazon Intelligence, which we look at the catalog, we see the empty spaces, the empty attributes, and start implementing answers based on their functions. If you want to talk about that, you can shoot an email to Vanessa at onlinesellersolutions.com. Also, if you want to learn more about Cosmo, I'm going to put out a lot of content. Make sure to follow me on LinkedIn. That's my favorite social media at the moment. Put content every single day. And yeah, been teaching a lot about it. I also have some other webinars coming up that will go deep into the nitty gritty, like algorithm changes, and explaining way more the Cosmo paper. So follow me on social, that's for sure. That by itself will give you some answers, but if you want us to take a look at your catalog, go to the email or the website onlinesellersolutions.com. Yeah, I'll see you around. Thank you so much for the invite.
Awesome. Well, thanks again for coming on, and we'll maybe follow up after the Accelerate event in September and see how many more shifts have happened before the end of the year. But Vanessa, it's a pleasure having you on. You're such a gem to the Amazon community. You've been a gem to me in my business. So hopefully everybody got some value out of this. It's going to be fascinating to see where the puck goes. Hit subscribe and or follow and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already. Thanks for joining us as usual. We will see you again next week. Cheers.